Bueno, muy buenas tardes para todos. Sean bienvenidos a la sesión informativa de esta actividad que hace parte del ciclo de charlas gratuitas ofrecidas por la Dirección de Educación Continua de la Universidad de los Andes en conjunto con diferentes facultades de la universidad. En esta ocasión estamos en conjunto con la Facultad de Ingeniería. Con este espacio buscamos ofrecerles nuevas alternativas para que continúen aprendiendo en cualquier momento de su vida. Antes de iniciar, queremos contarles que tendremos un espacio para responder sus preguntas, así que los invitamos a enviar todas sus inquietudes escribiendo aquí en el espacio de Zoom, en el espacio de preguntas y respuestas. Si nos acompañan por Facebook Live, por favor, escríbanos en el espacio de comentarios. Les recordamos que este evento está siendo grabado, por lo tanto, a través de correo electrónico les enviaremos el enlace para que puedan volver a verlo. En este momento tenemos algunos asesores disponibles por si quieren conocer más sobre el curso que estamos promocionando y se puedan inscribir. Les compartimos el enlace del Forms por el chat para que nos dejen sus datos y un asesor los pueden contactar. Bueno, y sin más preámbulo, hoy vamos a dar inicio a la sesión informativa.
Muchas gracias, Angie. Bienvenidos todos. El día de hoy estamos con David Oakey, Martin Waterberg y Kelly de la Universidad de California, Dominguez Hills. Right now I'm going to change to English since this webinar is going to be in English, of course. I have the privilege to present Mr. David Oakey and Mr. Martin Waterberg. Mr. David Oakey is the Executive Director of the Innovation Incubator at California State University, Dominguez Hills. He also currently sits on the board of directors of a half dozen companies and is actively involved in the growth of 7 early stages companies, and also is very actively involved in alumni programs and volunteers at the Dunville Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We also have Martin Waterberg, has worked in the high technology industry for over 4 decades. He has held engineering and executive positions in various companies, including the Rockwell Corporation, Interstate Electronics, and Harman Systems. So you are very welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all your effort and all your commitment for this webinar. Please, David, the word is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to all of those who are involved in pulling this together. We certainly appreciate this opportunity to be here. Hopefully you can see the screen. We've got an interesting topic that Marty and I want to walk you through, but it's really about finding a way to innovate in your career, even through times that are, certainly over the last several years have been very challenging. And how you find your chance to shine as a result. So real quick, I want to give myself and Marty a quick opportunity to introduce ourselves beyond the introduction. My name again is David Oakey. It's an honor to be here and be a part of this program. We've worked with your university many times, and we're very happy to do this. My background's entirely entrepreneurial. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13 and have been self-employed / startup guy ever since. Only recently in the last 9 years have I really focused on universities and educating students on how to use entrepreneurship to launch their own ideas, of course, but also to help use the skills that you learn from that to really hone in on a great career and a great job opportunity. But I want to give Marty a moment to introduce himself as well. He's the real backbone of this thing. So Marty, would you like to give him a quick intro?
Like David, my background is in entrepreneurship. I've worked for several companies in the R&D side. I've been vice president of research and development and spent most of my life in developing new products and services. And for the last few years, I helped start up some companies. My son and I have started what is now a large IT company with headquarters in Texas and offices here in California, New Mexico, and Arizona. Starting a new company, like David, being your own boss is a wonderful feeling when you can create your own organization, take your own product into the market and be in control of your own destiny. So that's why we're both passionate about this concept of creativity, innovation, and creating new products and services. So I'm looking forward to our next session with the university and hope to have some fun with you all.
Thanks, Marty. So what we wanted to do was kind of first get an idea with a quick little exercise. And if you would please, and I'll open up the chat window here for us, for those who might be able to receive it. I'd like you to go to menti.com, MENTI. I've put a link for you in the chat window, and enter the code 44166080. And what we want to do is have you just do a brain dump, we call it, right? Where you just, what are words that come to mind when you think about career opportunities in your industry today? Don't judge your ideas, just whatever words or phrases come up, try just putting some in. I'll give you a minute or two to think through that. If you're having trouble or whatever with the link, let me know. But otherwise, I'll give you about 30 seconds to a minute to put it in. Click on the link in the chat and put in some words. If you fill that whole list and hit submit, you can always do another round. So just whatever comes to mind, go have some fun. I'll be quiet so you can work on that for a sec. Very good. We're starting to see the first set of words come through. We'll give you about another 30 to 40 seconds to put some words in. Again, whatever comes to mind, give it a shot. All right. So we will let you go through that, and feel free, if more ideas and more words come to mind, feel free to continue on that path. We're gonna continue on from where we were, but if you come up with things, feel free to continue typing that into those, and we'll take a look at the results in a little bit. So as many of you may realize, the world has gone through quite a bit of turmoil in the last couple of years, and it just seems to be getting more chaotic. And even through some of the recovery that we've had, there's challenges in your economy, in the economy in the US, and the global economy, frankly, right? I went and pulled the unemployment rates, and just in the last few years, the unemployment rate has been as high as 21% in Colombia. And frequently that's the official number, and sometimes the number is even higher when you really get into the details of underemployment and some of these other terms. But that's a big gap, right? That's a lot of people, more than 10% losing their job in the early 2020 timeframe. And you can see it's been a challenge and inconsistent when trying to deal with recovering from that unemployment rate. It hasn't been a smooth decline dropping. It's had peaks and valleys along the way as we deal with continued surges and COVID and everything. That can be very scary for people. right? Have a career that doesn't feel stable. And then you add to that, if you start looking at headlines, these were just pulled in the last couple of days. Risk of a global recession, the global economy, rising recession risks. Goldman Sachs calculates a worst case recession forecast, right? There's all this news out there saying, whoa, wait a minute, things aren't looking good. I know in the market today, and I didn't look closely, but the US markets did not have a good day. And largely driven, my understanding, by one company called Target, that's a big retailer here, saying, we are not going to hit our profit targets because of the inflation issues that we're facing. So it's very understandable for many, especially those who are students that are about to graduate or will be graduating, relatively soon in the next year or so, to think, what am I supposed to do in this kind of mess? Like, was it this way for my parents? Did my uncle have to go through this? Did my grandmother have this kind of issue? And the answer is not the exact same issue, but there were definitely issues, right, that they faced. And it can be very frustrating, right? And the biggest thing that people do is they think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if this is a recession? How am I supposed to enter the market? How am I supposed to make my mark if I'm not in the perfect market coming out? And the reality is, that it's not all doom and gloom. And that's, if you get nothing out of today, I want you to realize that there is a lot to be afraid of, and yet there is far more to be hopeful of, right? A recession does not equal retreat, right? It does not mean that you have to back down from the opportunity. A downturn doesn't mean the end. It's not what we call a downfall, right? Where it's the end of your career or the end of an opportunity. And the other thing is that many people think that employment equals security. And in truth, it really doesn't, right? There are many people who end up at large employers, and you'll find is that large employers swing a lot. During good times, they're hiring a ton. During bad times, they're letting go of a lot of people. Smaller businesses, and more importantly, newer businesses, are much steadier about growing consistently because they're smart about hiring and they're smart about letting people go. And so employment doesn't always necessarily mean security. The days for most in the world of you get a job right out of college or right out of high school and you jump right into a 40-year career with a company, they still exist, but it's much rarer than it used to be, right? And it's very easy to say, well, I don't know, I'm in college. Do I want to work? Do I stick around and go for more education? How do I weigh these two different options? And of course, the reality is there's a lot you can do to try to find the right career for yourself. One of the things I learned or was taught when I was younger was this idea that if you do what you love, don't worry about the money. The money will show up, right? If you're in your passionate field, you're going to do great. I first heard this close to when this book came out in America. And I was in high school, and it was, oh my gosh, you're kidding. That's perfect, right? I can do what I love and everything will be great. And in high school, I loved horseback riding, and I thought Disneyland and roller coasters were the best thing on the planet. I loved video gaming. And of course, I was a musician, so I wanted to be a rock band star or whatever. And it was, these were all passions that I love. And I thought, great, I'll just go start a career in that. Now, of course, the reality is those don't necessarily make great careers. By the way, I like to mention, this isn't me. Many people who see this picture think, wow, look, it's David when he was 12 or something. It's not. I was never cool enough to have this cool glove that he's wearing. I didn't have that. I did have the Duck Hunt gun and the video game controller for the Nintendo, but not the glove. So the reality, though, is these are great hobbies. But if you look at them as a career, you don't end up doing the fun stuff, right? You don't ride the horse, you clean up the horse, and you don't do the roller coaster ride 50 times a day. You're doing the engineering or the maintenance or the cleaning of the roller coaster. And of course, you don't play video games, for fun. There are some that do it, as a career, but they end up having to spend 10, 12 plus hours a day practicing the game, and they become tired and sick of it because it's now a job, right? And so passions are great, but they don't solve everything, right? They're a good guide, but it's much smarter in many ways to find something that you like and realize that it could be a great passion, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a great career for someone to jump into, right? Now, I don't know about what it was like for you, but this was kind of the path I was told. My father was Japanese, and he had a very clear message when I was young. He said, you need to get good grades and work hard. I don't know if that's what you heard from your parents, but that's what I heard from my dad, especially when I was young. Get good grades and work hard. So when I was a teenager and kind of a jerk, right? Because most teenagers have that phase in them every once in a while. I said, so then what? So I work hard and get good grades. Why? And he said, that way you get good grades, you work hard, then you can go to a good college. And I said, okay, fine. Then what? And he said, well, then you work hard and you get good grades. Okay, Dad. Then what do I do? And he said, that way you can get into a good graduate school. And once you've done that, then you can work hard and get good grades. And I said, okay, so you want me to do nothing but work hard and get good grades. Then what? What's after graduate school? And he said, well, after you do that, then you will go out and get a good job because you worked hard and got good grades. And I said, okay, and once I'm in that job, what do I do? And he said, oh, at that point, now you only have to work hard. You no longer have to worry about grades. I said, okay, then what? And he said, if you work hard, you will get promoted and you will do very well. And I said, okay, then what? And he said, and then maybe you can get a woman to love you and you can get married. And I went, oh, that's where this is going. And I said, then what do I do? And then he said, now you will really learn what it's like to work hard, because being married is not easy. It is lots of hard work. So you must now work at home and work at work. And I said, okay, then what do I do? And he said, and then you can have grandchildren for me. I said, okay, so in other words, you want me to work hard and get good grades in high school, in college, in graduate school, so I can work hard and get a job, get promoted so that I can get married, so that we can have kids, or more importantly, so you can have grandkids. And I said, okay, then what do I do? And he said, then you go back to here and you will tell your kids, you need to work hard and get good grades. And I said, really? That's the whole cycle? And you realize that's kind of what our parents have, this linear view of exactly what the path is going to be. It's this perfect straight path that, of what they envision. Now, probably most of you are old enough to realize that that is not the way the world really works. Your life won't be a perfectly straight, line that goes from one end to the other. It's going to be a curvy line. You're going to get into a school you didn't expect, or you're going to not get into a school, or you're going to find you don't like nursing. It's too much blood, so you become an engineer instead, or whatever it is, right? There's a path that's not quite as straight as you think it is. By the way, I know they can't respond as much, but you can certainly ask in the or mention in the window. Does anyone know where this street is? Maybe one of the panelists knows. Paula, do you know?
Is that Curly Lombard Street?
Wow, very good. It's Lombard Street in San Francisco.
And in the world.
The crookedest street in the world. That's why I chose it, right? Now, Marty, any idea why it's all multicolored?
Not a clue. Gay Pride?
It's what everyone thinks. It's San Francisco. The reality is this is the 60th anniversary celebration of Skittles, which in America are a tiny little candy that's like M&Ms or like a little hard-coated candy. These are actually millions of Skittles lining the street. It's quite remarkable. There are trillions upon trillions of calories on that street. But anyway, I digress. The point being, the road that you take is not likely going to be straight. And so this is kind of what we envision the path being. Oh, it's going to be a little bit more of a meander back and forth. So the bad news is you're right, it's probably not going to be straight. The worst news is it's probably going to look more like this. Oh, that hurts, doesn't it? Right? And that's not fun, right? And most of us are going to start somewhere down here, not up here. Right? In America, the average student who graduated in the class of 2020 will have 3.2 careers. And what we mean by that is they will literally be an engineer for 10 or 15 or 20 years, and then they're going to pivot somehow in their career and become something completely different. They're going to run an ice cream shop, or they're going to open a restaurant, or they're going to teach sailing lessons. Who knows, something completely different. And they're going to go through 3.2 careers. They'll have 19 different jobs, which is a phenomenal number of jobs when you think it was just a couple of generations ago that the expectation is that you would have one job, right? One employer, and you would just move up in the company through time. And so the world has changed a lot, and the numbers are probably a little different in Colombia, but probably not that much different than in America, right? Employers are looking at much shorter employment time spans. Management is turning over much faster than it used to. People are creating new opportunities, unlike anything they had done before. And so I think it's a great opportunity. It's scary in some respects, but it's also really a huge opportunity to enjoy a lot of what the world has to provide to you. Now, one of the things that frequently comes up is like, where do I find, like, how, if I want to grab a hold of my career, I need to find something that's worthwhile. And I want to show you this as a concept, and I'm hoping the video will play properly for you, but it's about noticing things. This particular barcode, you may have seen this on some of the fruit that you have. It's very common to see now in large grocery stores and that sort of thing. It's a barcode to make checking out easier when you have fresh produce, right? It's a pretty straightforward kind of thing. But I want to see if maybe this video will work for you. Let's see. We'll watch just a portion of this. Let me know if you can't hear it properly or whatever. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we'll share at least some of it with you.
In the great 1980s movie, The Blues Brothers, there's a scene where John Belushi goes to visit Dan Aykroyd in his apartment in Chicago for the very first time. It's a cramped, tiny space, and it's just 3 feet away from the train tracks. As John sits on Dan's bed, a train goes rushing by, rattling everything in the room. John asks, "How often does that train go by?" Dan replies, "So often, you won't even notice it." And then something falls off the wall. We all know what he's talking about. As human beings, we get used to everyday things really fast. As a product designer, it's my job to see those everyday things, to feel them, and try to improve upon them. For example, see this piece of fruit? See this little sticker? That sticker wasn't there when I was a kid. But somewhere as the years passed, someone had the bright idea to put that sticker on the fruit. Why? So it could be easier for us to check out at the grocery counter. Well, that's great. We can get in and out of the store quickly. But now there's a new problem. When we get home and we're hungry and we see this ripe, juicy piece of fruit on the counter, we just want to pick it up and eat it. Except now we have to look for this little sticker and dig at it with our nails, damaging the flesh. Then rolling up that sticker, you know what I mean, and then trying to flick it off your fingers, right? It's not fun, not at all. But something interesting happened. See, the first time you did it, you probably felt those feelings. You just wanted to eat the piece of fruit, but you felt upset. You just wanted to dive in. By the 10th time, you started to become less upset. And you started to just do the peeling the label off. By the 100th time, at least for me, I became numb to it. I simply picked up the piece of fruit, dug at it with my nails, tried to flick it off, and then wonder, was there another sticker? So why is that? Why do we get used to everyday things? Well, as human beings, we have limited brain power. And so our brains encode the everyday things we do into habits, so we can free up space to learn new things. It's a process called habituation, and it's one of the most basic ways as humans we learn. Now, habituation isn't always bad. Remember learning to drive? I sure do. Your hands clenched at 10 and 2 on the wheel, looking at every single object out there, the cars, the lights, the pedestrians, is a nerve-wracking experience. So much so that I couldn't even talk to anyone else in the car, and I couldn't even listen to music. But then something interesting happened. As the weeks went by, driving became easier and easier. You habituated it. It started to become fun and second nature. And then you could talk to your friends again and listen to music. So there's a good reason why our brains habituate things. If we didn't, we'd notice every little detail all the time. It would be exhausting, and we'd have no time to learn about new things. But sometimes habituation isn't good. If it stops us from noticing the problems that are around us, well, that's bad. And if it stops us from noticing and fixing those problems, well, then that's really bad. Comedians know all about this. Jerry Seinfeld's entire career was built on noticing those little details, those idiotic things we do every day that we don't even remember. He tells us about the time he visited his friends, and he just wanted to take a comfortable shower. He'd reach out and grab the handle and turn it slightly one way, and it was 100 degrees too hot. And then he'd turn it the other way, and it was 100 degrees too cold. He just wanted a comfortable shower. Now, we've all been there. We just don't remember it. But Jerry did, and that's a comedian's job. But designers, innovators, and entrepreneurs, it's our job to not just notice those things, but to go one step further and try to fix them. See this? This person, this is Mary Anderson. In 1902 in New York City, she was visiting. It was a cold, wet, snowy day, and she was warm inside a streetcar. As she was going to her destination, she noticed the driver opening the window to clean off the excess snow so he could drive safely. When he opened the window, though, he let all this cold, wet air inside, making all the passengers miserable. Now, probably most of those passengers just thought, it's a fact of life. He's got to open the window to clean it. That's just how it is. But Mary didn't. Mary thought, what if the driver could actually clean the windshield from the inside so that he could stay safe and drive, and the passengers could actually stay warm? So she picked out her sketchbook right then and there and began drawing what would become the world's first windshield wiper. Now, as a product designer, I try to learn from people like Mary, to try to see the world the way it really is, not the way we think it is. Why? Because it's easy to solve a problem that almost everyone sees, but it's hard to solve a problem that almost no one sees.
So I will encourage you to look up Tony Fadell and his talk, but it's the point being that we sometimes lose track of noticing the things around us, right? All of us live 24 hours a day, and there are probably dozens of things every day that we look at and we say, why is that such a problem? Who hasn't fixed that? Like, somebody needs to invent something, right? Whatever that is, somebody needs to do something about it. And it's the innovators who come up with ways to try to solve things and really create those opportunities, right? But one of the things that people frequently do is they get bogged down in the details, right? And they think a lot about the product and what the product's trying to do. And one of the things that Marty and I like to talk a lot about is how, when you're designing a product, the product itself may not be the purpose, right? The product serves a purpose for the customer, right? When somebody walks into a store and says, I'm looking for a drill, yes, they are physically looking for a drill and they're hoping that you have something. But in the end, the fact they own a drill is not their purpose. The drill has a purpose, and what you really want to do is help people solve that purpose, right? They don't need a drill, they need a hole. And the reason they're buying a drill is to have a hole. And when you can look at the world and say, the problem isn't a drill, the problem is a hole they need. Now you can start to figure out what's the best way to provide a hole to somebody when they need it. And it might be a drill, which in our case, it frequently is, but there are many ways to create a hole in a wall, right? And so it's a matter of finding out what's the real problem your customer's trying to solve, and how can you frame a solution for them, which in our case is a drill, that will allow them to fix that problem that they're solving. One great way of looking at this is, when you look at the generations of product and development, that many people initially, especially in America in like the 50s and 60s of the last century, they were trying to build products for people. And eventually we started talking about solutions. And if you're familiar with software as a service, and you may have heard of multiple variations of that, now there's platform as a service, and there's food as a service, and everything's as a service. That is effectively saying somebody doesn't want a restaurant, somebody wants good food to eat. And if you can provide it as a service, that's very much addressing their actual issue, versus saying, let me provide you with a product, which could be good food or whatever. It's really about making things service oriented, focusing on their real issue, which just opens up a whole new world of opportunity to use products as a means of providing solutions to people, right? This age, where there's turmoil and the economy is going in different directions, can be incredibly scary. But it's the best time to be thinking big about, hey, there's going to be all sorts of change in the world, and people aren't going to know necessarily what to do. What can I do to find a good problem to solve, and jump in and build a product or service, or implement a service that will help people solve that problem? But of course, thinking big is great, but it only does you so much good. You got to be thinking small too, right? Or starting small with that thinking. Right? Because ultimately, if you want to solve a huge problem, you got to start small with something that you can manage to solve, even if it's just a piece of the problem to get there, right? And ultimately, we think, oh, that's what startups do. They find some new niche in the market that they're going to go and conquer. And that's great, except in reality, that's also what employers want. What modern day employer wouldn't want an employee who's doing their job, comes along and says, hey, boss, I noticed that the way we do things over here, that there's a problem with it. Here's a possible solution. Now, we've all probably heard of that boss who says, I don't care, shut up, get back to work. They exist, but increasingly bosses are figuring out innovative employees, whether they're in the accounting department, the engineering department, marketing, in a sales force, it does not matter where. Those people represent an opportunity to be innovators within the company and help push the company into a better process or a better service. Because ultimately, employers really want three things out of every employee, right? The first one is they want high quality work. It does not matter what job you're in, who your boss is, what company, what field, what kind of role. Everyone wants that job, that employee to do high quality work. That's why you're going to school. If you're an engineer, if you can't do the engineering, you're not going to create high quality work at an engineering firm, right? Or whatever the field might be. But everyone wants that. And if you can find a way to be innovative and create even better quality work, or make it so it can be done faster and on, so that you can perform on time, these qualities are things that every boss will want you to have. And being an innovator and thinking like an entrepreneur is a way of being able to accomplish that. The third thing that every employer wants, by the way, this list is exactly what I have ever fired somebody for. It's been for one or more of these reasons. They don't do high quality work. They don't get it done on time. And the last one is they've got to be pleasant to work with. If it's no fun working with the person, it almost doesn't matter how good or how on time their work is. I can't stand working with them. I will eventually find a way to not work with them, right? And that's sad to say, but it's also the truth, right? We've all had that boss that just we didn't get along with, and eventually we get moved or moved out, or the other people get promoted and you don't, or whatever it is. So these three things are what make you attractive to an employer. And if you can innovate, especially in the high quality work and getting things done on time, it's hard to innovate being nice. There are ways to innovate doing that, but consistently innovating high quality work and doing things on time is hugely valuable. So opportunities are all around you to show yourself to be a better quality worker, doing things on time and being pleasant to work with. So you guys took a moment to do some words. What I'd like to do is switch the share so that you can see a bit of the results of what you guys came up with. Thank you to all of you who participated. We appreciate it. Some of the words you're probably seeing here are things like, look, innovation. By the way, if you're not familiar, this word cloud will take the words that are most commonly said and will make the font a little bit bigger. So innovation was one of the top words, which of course makes me very happy because Marty and I love innovation. Passion is a good one. So when you think about career opportunities, passion is one that came up a lot. Good. New ideas. I see some negative ones, layoff and risk, right? They exist. There are definitely issues in the market, but thinking differently, opportunities, highly competitive. Yes, that is true. So finding a way to stand out is increasingly important. Trying something new, it requires new skills, new ways of interviewing. Yes, the interviewing world has changed. Zoom has changed everything about interviews for many people. These are great words. And what these are things is you guys came up with as ways that in which career opportunities are a part of your industry. They're not all bad. In fact, most are positive. So that's a good thing. So you should be very happy with that. And obviously, everyone's going to have a different experience. But part of the idea, especially in the course, what we're trying to do is how can you create innovative new products? And whether that's done so you can go launch a company, or you learn the skills and the talent and the mindset to be able to be a valuable employee for somebody and either get a better job or promote yourself within the company or whatever it might be is certainly worthwhile. So thank you again for sharing your thoughts on that. So some final thoughts so that we can wrap up and go to any kind of questions and have some final thoughts from some other panelists. Don't panic, even though the world looks like it's going through turmoil. Every generation goes through turmoil, and the turmoil is a little different every time. But every generation makes it through, and you're going to make it through too. Use it as an opportunity to really jump forward ahead of people. And a way to do that is to find needs around you in your industry. Find where people are struggling and position yourself to be solving that problem. And if you can find a need and solve the problems for it, you're going to be very, very successful in your career. And of course, always focus on what the customers and employers want. Every customer wants high quality work on time and nice to work with, right? And that's really a big part of it. And one of the ways you can really take advantage of challenging times is to expand your horizons and grow the amount of opportunities you have. You never know where a new opportunity is going to show up. It's all a matter of you deciding that you want to go and achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And if you look around you and notice the little things that are bothering the industry, you will find if you can step in and work on solving those problems, you will very quickly find yourself, instead of at the bottom of a mountain, climbing your way up some really painful career process, you will instead find yourself at the top of a mountain, peaking in your career and being amazed at how easy it was for you to be able to take advantage of innovation to get you to where you want to go. So with that, I want to say thank you and put up some contact information for both Marty and myself. And I know that Paula has some other information. Then we've got some info on the product development program. Paula, did you want me to go through that, or do you have those elements that you want to go through?
I think, first of all, we're going to answer questions.
Yes, we would love questions.
Okay, Angie, which questions do we have for David? Okay, I have one for you.
Yep.
So which recommendations do you give people in order to improve in the way they work with others? So for example, if my boss doesn't like me too much, how can I improve that relation with him or her?
I have that problem all the time. It's a great question. I'd love to hear Marty's thoughts on it as well, but I'll give you my 2 cents. There's a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was written over 100 years ago by a gentleman named Dale Carnegie. It really boils down the thing the title says, how to win friends and influence people. It talks about how to be nice to people is the easiest way to describe it, right? How can you be pleasant for people? How can you not worry about being right, but about winning friends and having influence? And it's not easy to swallow, sometimes your pride and assume the best in other people. But if you can get good at being friends with people in a very deliberate way, you will find that people will generally gravitate towards you and like you. And so I'll find the link and put it into the chat window for our guests. The book it's an old book, and some of the references inside the book are really 100 years old. But it's a great one. I'd love to hear Marty's point of view too, because he's great at this as well.
I have a different book. It's called How to Work with Jerks.
I love that title.
Yeah, it's a very good book. It deals with the fact that we have to work with lots of different kinds of people, and some that rub us the wrong way, some we may like, some may like us, some may hate us. The best boss I ever had did not like me, and I did not like him. We worked really well together, and we sat down and we discussed what objectives we wanted to get out of our jobs. What did he need from me? And then I explained, what did I need from you? And we agreed that if we did those things, we would meet the overall commitment to getting the work done. And it didn't matter how we felt about each other. I agree with David. It's always best to like the people you work with. That's the ideal. But more important than liking each other is respecting each other. Respecting each other for their integrity, their honesty, and their commitment to the goals of the organization. And then if liking comes in, that's a bonus. That's wonderful, but it's not necessary. So again, I work with a lot of people. I work at a medical device company, and we have an organic chemist who she's fantastic, the best organic chemist in California. She hates people. She doesn't come to meetings. She doesn't like dealing with anybody else. She wants to be left alone in her lab. We give her her assignments, her jobs, and she gets them done on time. And we don't invite her to coffee. We don't invite her to lunch, and everything works out well. So again, in the work world, we have to often work with people that we either don't like or don't get along with, but we still have to get the job done. And so again, part of it is open and honest. Discuss these things. One of the problems, I work a lot in Asia, is they want harmony on the job. And so a lot of these conflicts are buried. And when you bury a conflict, like if you bury a body, it starts to decompose and smell. And that happens on the job. So you want to get all of the issues out in the open, discuss them honestly, without emotions and rancor and anger. This is what I don't like about you. This is what bothers me. Can you please not yell at me? I don't like it. And my boss will say to me, I don't like the fact that you try to hide bad news until it's too late to do something about it. I'd like to know as soon as there's bad news so I can help you fix it. Okay, we can agree on that. So again, I think the solution is open discussion, honest, and making commitments to each other.
I love that answer, and I have to tell you, the how to work with jerks. I should hand that to everyone I work with, right? And say, hi, sorry, this might help you.
I've gone around in the office at night and dropped it on certain people's desks.
That's awesome.
Put it there.
That's spectacular. Paula, do we have another question, or do you want me to head into a little bit about the program?
No, I think we don't have any other questions, so please go ahead. Thank you.
Great. So we'd like to. So obviously, this is a bit about what we've done. This was a little bit of an insight into some of the stuff that we like to cover. We've got an innovative product development program that we've done for many years, and it's really designed to look through innovation and entrepreneurship as a means of solving real world problems and actually come up with ideas that can go to market, whether they're part of your company or you innovate a whole new startup idea out of it. It's really about developing innovative products that solve problems. So of course, we cover things like design thinking. You have to be creative and innovative, of course, in order to do this. But we talk about how your ecosystem is a part of that program. It's one of the things we emphasize really early. In fact, the very first week, we introduce you to an element of the Southern California ecosystem that runs virtually. It meets every week on Wednesdays, and it's something that you can get plugged into and be a part of from the very beginning and continue well beyond the program. But how that ecosystem around you, how the environment can help with what you're trying to do. And of course, we talk about tools like the business model canvas, and financing and marketing your product and making sure that you have the right kind of communication that's going out so that whatever you come up with, not only can you build it and make sure all the technical parts work, you can validate that there's desirability in the market, that people are going to want it, and that it's viable, that it's going to create a product that's going to survive financially. So of course, we do it all through a virtual environment with lots of recorded sessions, but also live interactions every week. We have guest speakers and industry experts that we work with. There is a group project. We put you into teams and allow you to collaborate. In the end, you end up earning a certificate from Cal State Dominguez Hills. So that's something you can definitely put on your resume. And it's a great way in an interview for people to come to realize that, hey, this is a person who reached out, got into a program up in California and worked on actually improving themselves. And of course, the big part is you're going to gain some international perspective for what we're doing. In addition to that, if you're a participant in that, there's actually an optional residential program where you'll get the chance to come to California and go through a variety of exercises and opportunities over the course of a week. Of course, you'll come to Dominguez Hills. We'll get you into a group and a project. We'll give you time to work on that, but we'll have some company visits as well. So some of those things will involve like going to the Jet Propulsion Lab, which is in Pasadena area. It's one of the most famous engineering places on the planet. It's where many of the space program elements are actually built for NASA and for a lot of the space work that's done. SpaceX is actually just down the street from us here in Dominguez Hills, and we now have what they call Rocket Beach, if you've ever heard of that. It's Long Beach, which is about 10 kilometers from here, has a lot of startups involved in rocket launches and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of innovative new things. But we also we'll go on a tour of the port of LA and Long Beach so that we have an idea as to what it's like to deal with more of the logistics of things. And of course, in the end, you're going to end up doing a group project and presenting your innovation in the course of just several days. So it's a fun program to come. It's an optional element of the program, but it's a great opportunity to come up and actually be a part of California and enjoy it. So if you're interested, the main program runs June 19th to July 18th. If you have questions about that, Kelly will put her contact information into the chat window. But we're excited about it, and we can't wait to work with anyone and all of you on that. So with that, I think I'll pass it back to Paula and let you wrap things up for us.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mari and Kelly also. It was a wonderful presentation. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope everyone here enjoyed it too. And right now I'm going to turn to Spanish for a little bit. Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Recuerden que la parte opcional de ir a California está separada de la parte virtual, es decir, pueden tomar el curso virtual que dura un mes y adicional ir a California o solamente hacer el virtual o solamente ir a California. Digamos, son cosas separadas para que lo tengan claro. Ahora le doy el pase a Angie para que nos dé una información importante.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Permítanme un momento, les comparto mi pantalla. Bueno, de nuevo igual, muchísimas gracias a todos. Les recuerdo que esta sesión fue grabada y que en el transcurso de esta semana van a recibir la grabación de este evento. En ese mismo mail les vamos a compartir toda la información y el link de registro para que sigan y conozcan más información de este curso. ¿Ibas a decir algo más, Paula?
Sí, acaba de llegar una pregunta. La pregunta es ¿el curso está abierto a personas con alguna carrera específica? Okay, David and Marty, we have another question. She or he is asking if the course is focused for any specific career or it is open to every career.
The topics we cover fit whether you're an engineer, in marketing, or any other field where you have responsibility for coming up with new ideas, new products, or in any position. There's innovation in how we build things, how we ship things. The only place I get nervous about being innovative is in finance. You can get into trouble if you get too innovative. But most fields require some level of innovation to take them from many companies are rooted in 20th century thinking, and here we are in the 21st century. And so the things we're going to cover and that we teach will give you ideas and how to do things in whatever field you happen to be in, from agriculture to aerospace engineering and everything in between.
Yeah, it does not require a specific career or a path. It's any field that you're in, any part of a company. Innovation is an option, and learning to think and act like an innovator, an entrepreneur, really has its advantages no matter what your career path might be. That's a great question.
And we talked about, David talked about entrepreneurship, but this also fits what is called intrapreneurship, where you want to train people in the company not to come up with a new idea and quit and start their own company, but develop improvements and ideas for within the company. So we cover both intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship.
There's another great question that's popped up. I'll read it for you. Actually, I don't have any specific ideas. I would like to have the tools to come up with a great idea. Can you give me the tools for it? Absolutely. That's week one, right? Is how do we deal with using tools like design thinking to identify and measure the caliber of opportunities? It's problem hunting, I call it, right? I need to go find something to solve. Give me the opportunity to do that. We've got several tools that we introduce to you so that you can both do it for yourself and do it in the class so that you have a project to work on over the several weeks, so that you can have a direction you want to run in. But that is something we hear frequently of, I just don't have any great ideas. What can I do? It's like there are tools you can use to help find those ideas, and they're not that hard. You just got to put a little effort into them, and they can really pay off. It's a great question.
Súper, bueno, muchísimas gracias de nuevo a las personas que nos enviaron sus respuestas. En este momento ya les puede compartir la información a través de chat para que por favor la lean, la revisen. Les acabamos de dejar también un link de una pequeña encuesta en donde pueden dejarnos sus comentarios de cómo vieron esta experiencia y pues cómo les pareció la actividad del día de hoy. Por otro lado, les recordamos que este evento fue grabado y en el link que les compartí también en el chat van a poder volver a revivir este evento por si de pronto se perdieron algún episodio. Bueno, no siendo más, de nuevo muchísimas gracias a todos por su participación. Esperamos que esta actividad haya sido provechosa para todos ustedes y que nos sigan acompañando en el resto de actividades programadas. Les deseo a todos una muy feliz tarde, a nuestros panelistas, y de nuevo gracias por participar.
Gracias, Angie. Thank you very much, David, Kelly, and Mari. It was a pleasure having you guys here. And I just keen to have you here in Colombia.
We'll get there, that's for sure.
Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Be safe.
Yes.